Welcome to this fine SR-IOV on Rev tutorial. And today we're going to be setting up a Rev host for SR-IOV. So we're going to begin by logging into the administration portal. I'm going to log in as administrator. And the first thing we're going to want to do is to come over to hosts and select our host that we're going to be setting up for SR-IOV. Now before we begin, let's first log into this host. And let's first take a look at his NIC cards. We see here he has some X710 10GB cards from Intel. And now we just want to make sure that those cards are SR-IOV capable. So let us look at lspci-v, and we will run that through less. We will search for X710, which is the model of the card that we have here. And we see that under the capabilities, single root I/O virtualization is indeed available, which is awesome. So we're going to leave this host right now, and we're going to come over here. The first thing that you would do after you confirm that your cards are SR-IOV capable is you'll come over to your host and you will put him into maintenance mode. I'm going to say OK to agree to put the machine into maintenance mode. Now, if this machine was running some virtual machines at the time, that would have to migrate off, and then the machine would be placed into maintenance mode. Then we'll come over and click Edit and come over to Kernel. Click the host dev pass-through and SR-IOV checkbox, and what that's going to do is it's going to append Intel IOMMU to the kernel line. I'm going to say OK. Now we have the exclamation point, which says that the host needs to be reinstalled. So we're going to come over here. In the installation, we're going to say reinstall. And we're just going to agree to reinstall this machine. At this point, he is going to be reinstalled. It's going to rebuild his kernel, and we'll check him when he comes back up. Okay, so our host is back from reinstall land. The next thing we're going to do is put him right back into maintenance mode so that we can edit his network settings. Now that the machine is in maintenance mode, click on his host name, and then on network interfaces, and go into setup host networks. Here are our two cards that we're going to be setting up virtual functions. First, begin by clicking the edit button, and we will want to specify all 32 virtual functions. Same thing on the other card. Now they are all set up. We need to say OK. In the meantime, while that applies, let us log into Starlord. LSPCI shows us that we have virtual functions, and we will ask it how many. We should be expecting 64. Indeed, we have 64. Should be able to come over here and now say, show us the virtual functions, and we should see all the virtual functions in here. So we know that those are now enabled. And those should now show over here in these interfaces. So the next part is to set up the networking. Now I've already done some of this for the other host here, and I'm just joining this one in with the rest of them. So I'm just going to quickly cover what I have done. We have SR-IOV-A and SR-IOV-B networks that we've created. I will just show you what is inside of that. Click on the edit. This is the main setup. I have not specified that you enable tagging. I did specify that it is a virtual machine network. The other part that is important is over in the clustering side. When I created this network, I specified that it is attached to hypervisors, not required. It's not a required network, and it's certainly not a requirement for the cluster machines that are part of our cluster here. The other part of that is the VNIC profile. So after you create the network, edit the corresponding VNIC profile. The important part about that is you enable pass-through. We did make 2 networks, and they both have their separate VNIC profiles, and the question may be, why 2? Because we have 2 separate network interfaces on each host that we're going to use for SR-IOV. So we come back and look at our hosts, and we're going to click on Starlord and his network interfaces, click on Setup Host Networks. And I could have easily done this before, but I wanted to give some explanation as to what was done before as far as the setup was concerned. And we're going to drag SR-IOV-A onto this NIC and drag SR-IOV-B onto our separate NICs. So we have 2 separate ways to specify SR-IOV networks for machines, and we know which NIC it will go on, so that if we want to, we can create bonds between them. We drag the networks onto the base cards and not onto the virtual functions themselves. By doing it this way, it allows us to segregate virtual functions across any of the sub-virtual functions that fall underneath each individual NIC. So we're going to say OK to commit those. We need to take our host out of maintenance mode once we are done editing everything. And once our host has come back and activated, we are done configuring the host for SR-IOV. And there we go. Join us in part 2, where we verify SR-IOV on the host by setting up some instances that use SR-IOV, and then setting up some VNIC profiles that take advantage of SR-IOV inside the cluster.